The Cyberpunk news keeps rolling in, and we're talking about The Witcher today. Check out the headlines right here. Cyberpunk Peralez update from the devs. Is the story ever going to continue? We have some very interesting comments from the dev team about this one. Plus, we're going to be talking about this right here. The Cyberpunk expansion will cost you everything. No, not really, but are we really supposed to be surprised that this is going to be a paid expansion? But also, how much are we going to be forking over for this paid expansion? That's going to be the big question. So we're going to talk about that. Plus, you have a decision to make. Cyberpunk Edgerunners fans, vote now to decide Edgerunners' fate. This is interesting because yes, it's going to be Edgerunners versus the rest of the adaptations for video games at the Game Awards. We're going to talk about the nominations today. Also, check this out right here. The Witcher 3 is getting a big next-gen update, and guess what? It's free. So that's actually really big news, and I feel like it's almost like going to be a relaunch of The Witcher 3. I'm so hyped for December for that reason. But anyway, let's get into the news about Edgerunners here, because yes, it is going to be at the Game Awards, and we are going to be seeing Edgerunners versus Arcane League of Legends, the Cuphead show, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and Uncharted. And we're talking about, of course, best adaptation for, movie to film, or, movie to TV series, what have you, movie to anime in the case of Edgerunner. So let me know which one you're going to be voting for here. You better say Edgerunners. That's all I got to say. No, but it's tough because out on the Reddit forums, or the Reddit here for Cyberpunk, we have the hardest decision of my life. It says Arcane League of Legends versus Cyberpunk Edgerunners. This is tough. For me, I love both. I adore both of those. So, dude, that's going to be so tough to choose, but I'm going to lean for Edgerunners because I'm biased. I'm just going to say that. Of course, I'm going to pick Edgerunners. I'm such a huge fan of Cyberpunk and what they've created within this universe. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into some details and discussions about, yes, the expansion. It has been confirmed that this is going to be, guess what? A paid expansion. No, you don't say. So this is the recent headline. Phantom Liberty will be a paid expansion. CD Projekt RED confirms, or reconfirms, I should say. And over the Eddie's tune. But how much are we talking here? And the community is also kind of like scratching their heads about this one. Why is this making the rounds here? Look at this. And in other news, the water is wet. Classic IGN, as you can see right here, but IGN wasn't the actual source of this news at all. I'm going to get into some of the details, but a lot of the outlets picked up on this, like this is some sort of staggering, sudden announcement by CD Projekt RED that it's going to be a paid expansion. Oh my God, you're going to have to pay money to get access to Phantom Liberty. Yeah, that's going to be the case. The developers need to be paid. So what's the problem? I have no issue with making sure the devs can pay their rent and everything like that. They're working their butts off on the Phantom Liberty. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the article. It says this in a comment provided by or2 Games Radar, CD Projekt RED Global PR Director Radik Ropsky, sorry if I butchered the name, confirmed that as far as the expansion price, we have not revealed exact details yet, but it will be a paid one. So of course that's going to be the norm, but we can kind of get an idea of what to expect from the price. We can speculate on that based on what we know from The Witcher 3. Check this out. It says that likely won't come as too big as a surprise to fans, but there has been some confusion. For The Witcher 3, CD Projekt released both paid and free add-on content, but the difference seems to have lied in how it described the new stuff. Using Wild Hunt as an example, DLC appeared to be free, but limited editions, while expansions were premium, paid, and significantly larger. Hearts of Stone cost $10 on release, while the Blood and Wine expansion, which featured a whole new map, was $20. So, got to consider something that is a new wrinkle here in, the potential cost of this expansion is things like inflation, development cost on next gen that they're gonna, kind of claim, that sort of thing. So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the expansion actually ended up being like $30. That's just my assessment. It's gonna be in the $20 to $30 range. which I think is going to be kind of expected from this expansion. We'll have to see what CD Projekt RED decides. They better not go to the $40 or they might ruffle some feathers for sure. Honestly, I would love if it was going to be free, but we live in a real world here. But mentioning free DLC, that's one thing I have to talk about. We need more of it for Cyberpunk 2077. So, update 1.7 is not out yet. And I'm hoping that we get something around Christmas time, around the anniversary of Cyberpunk 2077, because you all deserve something around that time, free stuff before we get into the paid expansion. That's just my opinion about that one. But we also got to talk about the Peralez story arc in Cyberpunk 2077. A lot of you guys were kind of bummed about how that ended, or I guess you would say did not end. We have some very interesting comments about this story arc from CD Projekt RED. Check it out right here. It says, since there's so much confusion about the lack of continuation of the Peralez story, here are the words of the author of this quest that may suggest otherwise. This comes from Patrick Mills. He says this, yeah, the Peralez stuff is mine, but you've seen most of that storyline now outside the epilogue and some media stuff on TV. My goal for that one was to have V make a choice, but not to be around for the consequences. Story isn't over, but V's part is. So it goes on to basically tell us that the world of Night City is much bigger than V. Not everything can revolve around V. I think that's kind of the point of the Peralez storyline, despite many people saying, oh man, that wasn't really a satisfying ending. Maybe you don't feel that way. Maybe you were satisfied with it though. But it also might allude to the fact that we might actually see something about this, a continuation perhaps, or see a different perspective of the Peralez story arc through the expansion Phantom Liberty. That's me speculating. But I do also think that, or recall, that Paul Sasko of CD Projekt RED on one of his streams did clarify that the Peralez storyline is finished and done. So we'll see if they do actually revisit it. We'll have to wait and find out more about that, I should say, when it comes to Phantom Liberty. We'll see. Also, here's some comments about it. We have Supremo92, who says, I thought the whole point was to introduce a greater scope mystery that V has no impact or control, to give the impression that no matter how much you ascend the Night City Street legend hierarchy, there will always be powerful people behind the scenes that ultimately dictate the world we live in, a theme common in cyberpunk media. Although narratively unfulfilling, that's precisely its intention. Well, unless I'm missing something, I'd love to follow the quest up in some form, DLC, the upcoming book, etc. But speaking for myself, I like the discomfort of denial or closure of closure. So a lot of people agreed with that one. And we also have this comment here as well. He says, there's no confusion. This one comes from Top Deck Hero 420. The quest did what the quest was designed to do. Make the player aware of things bigger than V going on out there. It's specific and open-ended, but they can always choose to come back to it at some point, whether it's DLC or another game. Absolutely. So it's kind of the assessment in the community. I think it would be cool to return to it in some way from a different perspective. That's how I think it would be very interesting if they did that for sure. All right, so we have a conspiracy theory about the actual release of Cyberpunk 2077. As you guys know, it was kind of a botched mess. And yes, they have fine-tuned the game, and it's in a pretty good state right now, despite not having police currently. Coming update 1.7. But check it out right here. It says, found a YouTube comment that is exactly what I think too. That's why they just wouldn't delay like 1 year and just kept delaying a few weeks to not go past 2020. Check it out right here. Here's the theory. Scroll on down for you. It says, there is a weird coincidence about Cyberpunk's development I've never seen anyone else mention. The first trailer was uploaded in 2013, while the first version of the tabletop game was titled Cyberpunk 2013. CD Projekt RED then seemed dead set on pushing the game out in 2020, which was also the namesake of the second version of the tabletop game, Cyberpunk 2020. Part of me genuinely thinks that this entire game was botched because some CEO desperately wanted to match Cyberpunk's naming convention with real life. If that's not the case, sure is a crazy coincidence. I don't know. I feel like it's such a stretch to say that, but who knows? Crazier things have happened in the world. So maybe, just maybe, they wanted to target 2020 to match up with what was going on with other parts of the Cyberpunk universe, I guess you would say. All right, so let's get into The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt news. I'm sure you guys have heard. Check it out right here. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt next-gen update arrives this December. Return to the continent. I cannot wait. So, yeah, it has been confirmed that the free update for existing, owners of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and I believe anyone else that gets the game, it's going to be December 14th, free for everyone who already owns the game. And they're going to have a gameplay reveal showing the next-gen update next week at twitch.tv/CD Projekt RED. And I cannot wait to see what this looks like. Again, I feel like it's going to be like a whole re-release, and it's so cool. I will say this. Kudos to CD Projekt RED for doing this for free. It's still got to be a lot of work. And there's some cool things going into this beyond just a graphical update. We've got this right here. More details on these integrated mods and other features will be shared during a Twitch live stream sometime next week. But CD Projekt RED has otherwise confirmed the next-gen version to include all previously released DLC alongside new content based on the Witcher Netflix series. That's kind of bittersweet, though. I will say, since there's content going to be based on Henry Cavill's Witcher, I don't know. That's kind of bittersweet for sure. But yeah, still, I cannot wait for that. I'm a big fan of, I guess you would say, both versions of The Witcher with Netflix and, yes, even, of course, the game franchise. But yeah, it's time to get into your top comments from my most recent video. So remember, leave a comment down below. It can end up right here, right smack in the video. But yeah, let's get into the most recent video, which was this right here. It says brand new updates just got excellent news about the future beyond update 1.7. So let's go ahead and see what you guys have to say about this. Now, this video was about how CD Projekt RED will be approaching main content versus side content. There was some interesting comment from Peralez of CD Projekt RED, basically stating how he felt they made a mistake with Cyberpunk 2077 having so much of the side content optional and outside of the main story arc. He felt like, man, we should have required players to at least go through the main, I guess you would say, side content to get to the main plot point and have I guess you would say, it gated in a way. It makes sense to me because there's a lot of quality side stuff that I think a lot of people missed out on. I do think that they just went through a lot of the core game for Cyberpunk and were like, well, this is really short. So yes, in hindsight, they should have done that a little bit differently. So I do agree. Now, Alan says this: the worst thing about Night City feeling underdeveloped is that so many of the buildings are just set pieces with nothing in them. It wasn't feasible to attempt completely filling every building with something, but there's a lot of striking architecture that just begs to be explored when you see it. I think a lot of the 2012 Dread movie, where the majority of it was set inside one mega block, I would have liked to have seen Cyberpunk have at least one or two self-contained dungeon crawl style arc or side arcs in some of the massive towers around the city. Dude, I totally agree. I feel like they could have treated them kind of like, I hate to call it raids, but you know what I mean? Like more hardcore content that when you go into this mega building, you got to be prepared. You've got to have all of your abilities ready. It's going to be quite the challenge. Maybe there's going to be sub-bosses. They could even have randomly generated AI in mega buildings where you can revisit them from time to time. Perhaps they're occupied by a different faction after you, defeat or clear that mega building. There was so much they could have done here. It's just a shame that it's not fully realized. So hopefully Cyberpunk Orion, the sequel, actually does realize the potential there with mega buildings. Now we have Squeezy Donuts, who says there were so many times that I was doing a mission only to find out that it was an optional side mission. They did such a good job with these. What he said really makes sense, but I did enjoy that feeling. So yeah, the feeling of being free to do whatever you want, whenever you want, is superb in Cyberpunk in that regard. But also, you can have a habit of missing key backstory elements to characters that might help flesh out the main story more. So I think that's kind of the problem they ran into with that freedom, for sure. Now we have Head Games, who says this right here. I'd like to see the 2023 Night City. That really classic dark cyberpunk feel made me want to stay in the flashbacks. Dude, that's the thing. That is very interesting you mentioned that, because in my previous video, we talked a little bit about how Night City might be a permanent thing, a forever thing, where we are constantly revisiting it in different iterations in sequels. And to me, that makes a lot of sense, because they can really, really keep building out this cities in different forms and continue onward with this. And furthermore, also, add another layer to it, multiplayer, which I know a lot of you kind of cringe at that idea, or maybe you're like, oh, wow, yeah, that'd be fun to be able to explore Night City with friends for sure. As long as it doesn't take away from the single player, but a lot of potential with that for sure. Now, we have Kyle Carway, who says, I kind of want a continuation of V's story. We know he had 6 months to a year left to live. It would be cool to play out his last moments of life trying to find more ways to live. I also thought it would be cool to see an Arizona map, since one of the endings is you leave with Pan Am. That would be very interesting. I mean, when you think about Arizona and trying to get a feeling of a dystopian type future, you probably want it to take place near Phoenix or something like that, I would think, and then expand out into the valley a little bit more. But yeah, I think they could do a lot with that for sure. But there it is, the latest happenings around Cyberpunk 2077. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more Cyberpunk, The Witcher, and I hope to cover a bunch of other open world games which look very, very interesting, but stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time. Take care.